How does anyone fall for that?
If you or I were replaced with a completely different voice for a single line in this review, no one would notice.
What if it was 2 lines?
Then they might notice.
Good notes, let's get started.
Marriage! A performative measure of claiming what's yours in front of your friends and family that costs both of you time and money. You and they stand before the world, stake your claims, make your vows, then go off to live a happy life together. You may move in together, or you may move to a completely new area, perhaps an island. Perhaps an island full of anthropomorphized creatures and animals. Perhaps those creatures and animals are female. Well, that seems to be exactly what Wife Quest is about.
On an unknown island in the middle of an unknown ocean lives a married couple. The headstrong and short-tempered Mia, a former warrior with an eye for battle and a lust for blood, and Fernando, her timid and laid-back husband. Their humble farmland is raided almost daily by monster girls, which are anthropomorphized female creatures very thirsty for Fernando. Each time they raid, however, Mia is able to chase them off. Until one day, a dark elf named Morgana hatches a scheme to enter the couple's completely unlocked home and steal Fernando from Mia while they're sleeping. Unfortunately, Morgana doesn't account for the door she entered through and accidentally wakes Mia.
In a furious rage, Mia gives chase after the dark elf, and so the adventure begins. Lush grasslands, creepy caves, a volcano, and more await Mia as she cuts through each and every monster girl she encounters. Nothing will stand in the way of her rescuing her beloved Fernando. Gameplay centers around platforming to get from one end of the room to another. With each level having over a dozen rooms, this can get quite repetitive and boring. But at least there's a tracker to figure out how many rooms you have left, and then you don't have to worry about lava or enemies with no sound effects getting their licks in. You'll jump and dash and glide through over 60 very similar rooms across all 7 levels in this game. I'd mention the combat, but this level of immersive abuse makes me uncomfortable, so James will do that.
Thanks. Combat in this game is simple. You just swipe your sword until the health bar ticks to nothing. Afterward, you press down on the control stick or pad to perform an execution of your enemy. These animations range from simply breaking legs to straight up cracking spines and necks. Mia is merciless in her takedowns, and you have to watch each unique one at least once. Afterward, you can hold B to skip each one. You even perform these on bosses you encounter. Mia will tear tails, batter baddies, and snap spines of anyone who crosses her path, and it's rather violent.
After you get done with each level and find a bunch of gold, you can attend to the shop by pressing X on the overworld, where you'll meet Ymir, the shopkeep. She'll give Mia information on where to go next, even though the map shows which way to go, and joke with Mia with some funny dialogue. In fact, all the dialogue in this game, while having undertones of
Extreme thirst,
is kind of funny. It's a nice break from the horrific scenes of violence that Mia will go out of her way to perform on this adventure.
Wife Quest is a rather expansive game for its simplicity, but it could use some updates. First and foremost, split the levels up into smaller, easier to swallow levels. They would have worked better as worlds, with 3 to 4 rooms to enjoy instead of having to slog through over a dozen rooms at a time. They all follow a similar format as well. Long stretches of platforming sequences, auto-scroll trap escape insta-kill rooms, boss intro, more platforming, then the boss. Most levels follow this formula with very few changes to it, and it gets boring and repetitive after a while.
The next major change is actually several little ones. Sound effects are missing, detections for platforms and for hits are off, and the magic meter makes no sense. Platforms and hit detection being off is a plausibly simple fix, but extremely noticeable during the first phase of the final boss. The magic meter is the thing most in need of updating. You'll deplete it each time you use a skill or defend/deflect an attack, which means if you have no mana, you have no defense. So if you run out of mana during a boss or an auto-scroll trap room, you may as well die and start over instead of attempting to operate without defense or skills. That seems slightly unfair.
Wife Quest is a simple platformer that feels like a much longer game than it is. 7 levels looks like so few, but when they drag on for as long as they do, you start to lose track of time, specifically in the samey environments and the platforming sections. With the updates needed to general platforming, combat, and the magic meter itself, this game requires improvements before this reviewer can recommend it. But in a few months, this game could be one of the better platformers on the Switch, even if it's already one of the thirstiest.